Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and we have our first trailer for Marvel's Black Panther, directed by Ryan Coogler, and with Chadwick Boseman returning as a character from Captain America Civil War. And this trailer is crazy. I don't know what is going on, and I kind of love that. Everything looks so new and mysterious, but I'm gonna break down all the missable details, what we know about all these characters, and why their secret society looks so much cooler than ours does. Okay, let's get started.
Tell me something. What do you know about Wakanda?
It's a third world country. Textiles, shepherds, cool outfits.
All front.
Okay, so this opening section shows us Martin Freeman's Everett Ross, the CIA agent that we saw in Captain America Civil War, interrogating this guy, Ulysses Klaue, played by Andy Serkis. Now, we last saw Klaue in Avengers Age of Ultron. He was the black market arms dealer in South Africa with the stolen vibranium that he handed over to Ultron before getting his arm cut off for dissing Ultron in the worst possible way.
Tony Stark used to say that.
Do I look like Iron Man? Stark is not.
And now we learn where Klaue got that vibranium, the African kingdom of Wakanda. So Wakanda is the home of Black Panther, and the MCU has been teasing this for a while now. As far back as Iron Man 2, the country was circled on the map in the background, and then in the post-credit scene for Civil War, we finally got a full glimpse of it. And these misty waterfalls that we see both in the post-credit scene and in this trailer look like they're part of this same natural barrier. Like this is how Wakanda hides itself from the outside world to prevent outsiders or satellites or like annoying drones from being able to peek in. And I like how Ross teases us by saying Wakanda is known for its cool outfits. There's obviously a double meaning here. He's referring both to the traditional garb worn by the UN delegates in Civil War, but he's also talking about an even cooler outfit, the woven vibranium suit of Black Panther, arguably the coolest outfit that we've seen in the MCU. And I'll get to that suit later, but for now, let's move on.
Explorers have searched for it. Called it El Dorado. They looked for it in South America, but it was in Africa the whole time.
Okay, here it's interesting that Klaue refers to Wakanda as El Dorado. He's referencing the mythical city of gold sought after by Spanish explorers in South America. It's a pretty appropriate comparison because this hidden African El Dorado contains an even more valuable metal, vibranium. So Wakanda acquired its rich, unique supply of vibranium from a meteor that crashed there long in the past. It allowed the country to flourish technologically way earlier than the rest of the world, and only very small amounts of the metal have ever made it out of Wakanda, like the vibranium that was used to make Captain America's shield. Now, we know this movie takes place directly after the events of Captain America Civil War. The death of his father, King T'Chaka in Vienna, resulted in T'Challa taking up the mantle of Black Panther and King of Wakanda. But like any time a king dies, there's a power struggle. So other rivals have returned to try to claim the throne, and T'Challa has to fight them off to prove himself worthy. And I think that's what's happening here. T'Challa is deboarding his royal Talon fighter, and he's shirtless, showing off these tribal tattoos as if walking into gladiator combat with all of his Wakandan fans cheering him on. He's also holding a shield here. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but this could be Captain America's shield. Remember, at the end of Civil War, Cap left it behind at that Siberian Hydra base after his fight with Iron Man. So maybe Black Panther came across the shield and was like, you know, I've been clawing the crap out of this thing. It's gotta be vibranium, which means it was metal stolen from my freaking homeland. That's it, I'm taking it back, damn it. Or maybe Black Panther just picked it up to hold on to for Cap, and maybe that Civil War post-credit scene was Cap coming back to pick it up. Or maybe it's a different shield. Anyway, there's this quick shot of Forrest Whitaker's character, Zuri, who I'll talk about in a bit, but before I move on, I love the look of this shot with these majestic cliffside waterfalls and colorful tribal costumes. The cinematographer on this film was Rachel Morrison, who recently shot the movie Dope. That movie was super colorful. Morrison's just so great at using vibrant color palettes to make every image pop. Okay, let's move on.
I'm the only one who's seen it and made it out alive.
Okay, so here Black Panther ambushes this group of rebel soldiers or poachers or smugglers or just people who stupidly crossed into the Wakanda border. Anyway, I love how this shot shows him stealthily perched on a branch like Black Panthers are known to do in the wild. I also like how the dog is barking up at him because, yeah, dogs are known to bark at cats and trees in the wild. We also get to see his suit and fighting skills in action. Now, the vibranium suit is bulletproof and he has increased strength. Now, in the comics, that strength comes from T'Challa eating a special herb from soil with trace minerals of vibranium. This guy's like all metal. Now, check out these soldiers' uniforms and trucks and radios. They seem a little old, right? Like maybe 80s or early 90s. Now, I guess these soldiers might just have older gear, but I'm predicting that this is all part of a flashback. Like maybe this isn't T'Challa Black Panther, but his father, T'Chaka, as a younger man. Now, later in this trailer, we're gonna see a slightly different Black Panther suit, which could just be an upgrade or a redesign, or we're seeing two different suits because we're seeing two different generations of Black Panthers. Let's move on.
I can see you.
So here, T'Challa is observing Claw's interrogation with Okoye, played by Denai Guerrera, aka Michonne from The Walking Dead. She's a bodyguard from the Dora Milaje. That's the king of Wakanda's all-female royal guard. You might remember one of these bodyguards threatening Black Widow during Civil War.
Move, or you will be moved.
And it looks like Guerrero will get a chance to show off some of her Walking Dead fighting skills later in the trailer. Now, how is Claw able to see through the one-way mirror? Like, sure, maybe he's just insane, but I'm thinking this could be connected to his origin in the comics. So originally, Claw was the one who kills T'Chaka, and he loses his hand shortly afterward when T'Challa attacks him trying to avenge his father's death. And then later, Claw adds to his stump a prosthetic sonic gun that allows him to create objects using only sound. He also transforms himself into like an immortal being that's made of sound. So maybe the movie version of Claw has a similar power that's related to sound, allowing him to hear using super hearing or using sound waves to echolocate or maybe like sense vibrations that enable him to kind of see through this mirror wall. And before I move on, look in the background here. Now I could be wrong, but that kind of looks like Steve Rogers, Captain America, on the TV monitor. He's wearing similar clothes to when he was a fugitive in Civil War, and we know from that post-credit scene that Cap was recently in Wakanda. So I'm curious, do you think that we're gonna see Captain America show up in this movie? And if so, do you think any other MCU characters might show up too? Like, which ones do you wanna see? Let me know in the comments, but for now, let's move on.
The world is changing. Soon, there will only be the conquered and the conquerors.
Okay, this section gives us this gorgeous wide shot of Wakanda, which is a massive, futuristic metropolis, even with its own expansive transportation grid. The whole look and design of this city seems to be inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates' recent run of the Black Panther comics. But really, this looks like something out of like the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Thor movies. So even though Black Panther is set on Earth in this dimension, it's still gonna have that eye-popping comic book feel that these recent Marvel movies have had. By the way, you can check out the breakdowns that I've done of these other cosmic, colorful visuals in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and in the Thor Ragnarok trailer. Okay, so next is this shot of Zuri, played by Forrest Whitaker. He's a spiritual elder in this kingdom and a friend to Chitaka. And director Ryan Coogler describes him as an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure. Personally, I've always seen him as more of a Saw Gerrera figure, but whatever. Then we see this guy putting on a tribal mask as he breaks Claw out of the holding cell. Now, we get a better look at him later, but this is Njadaka, better known as Eric Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan. Now, his family was exiled from Wakanda when he was a boy for helping Claw get into the kingdom. So he went to America and took on the name Killmonger and became this super fit, super educated badass just waiting to get his revenge on T'Challa. And the mask that he wears here is similar to the tribal mask that he wears in the comics. And I think Killmonger challenging T'Challa for claim to the throne will be one of the main obstacles for this movie. And it looks like he and Claw will be working together in trying to destabilize T'Challa's authority in Wakanda. Then we we meet another character, Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia. She's another warrior in the Dora Milaje. Now in the comics, she's a love interest to T'Challa, and she's later corrupted and given powers by Killmonger, who gives her the name Malice. We'll see if things go this way in the movie, but in this shot, Nakia is walking through this casino, which I think is part of the sequence that takes place in South Korea. Apparently there's a major chase sequence that was shot in Busan, and we'll see a few shots from that later in the trailer. And throughout this section, we hear this warning from T'Challa's father, T'Chaka.
The world is changing. There will only be the conquered and the conquerors.
So again, I feel like there's probably some kind of flashback sequence in this movie, unless T'Chaka is speaking to his son from beyond the grave like Mufasa. But really, these kind of sound like words of wisdom that T'Chaka is saying to T'Challa when he was a boy. And this all hints to a major theme in this movie, whether or not Wakanda and Black Panther can remain isolationist. Like at some point, they're gonna be conquered or conquerors, either the hunted or the hunters. Now, something interesting is happening in this shot of T'Challa approaching his fellow Wakandans. At first, I thought he's approaching a rival, kind of like, come on, what else you got? But notice how his facial expression changes. It starts with a subtle smile of familiarity, and then it drops to get more serious. Maybe T'Challa is greeting his friends and family, but then he realizes something is wrong. Now, based on the flames in the foreground of this shot, this seems like it could be taking place in the aftermath of some kind of battle or attack. So I don't know, I'm kind of feeling that maybe T'Challa is like coming home to find someone he loves has died, or maybe he's walking up about to invite everyone out for drinks, and then he realizes that they were all planning on hanging out without him. It happens to the best of us, T'Challa. Anyway, let me know what you think is going on in this scene in the comments. But before I move on, we get these quick shots of Claw in a museum, apparently in disguise. Now check out that patch. That crest is for the Northwest Ambulance Service, meaning this is probably somewhere in the UK, maybe the British Museum in London. Now in the background, there are these various African artifacts like masks and headpieces. Maybe Claw is hoping that one of these will contain traces of vibranium or some other clue to the location of Wakanda. And it's his failed heist here that lands him in Ross's custody. Okay, let's move on.
Step into the spotlight.
You are a good man
Step into the spotlight.
with a good heart. And it's hard for a good man to be a king.
So here we see T'Challa speaking at another UN General Assembly meeting. And the music that plays here is Legend Has It by hip-hop duo Run the Jewels. The lyrics of Step Into the Spotlight is another example of the theme that I talked about earlier, that in order to save the kingdom, T'Challa will have to leave obscurity and literally step up into the spotlight.
I suppose neither of us is used to the spotlight.
Well, it's not always so flattering.
Now, it seems like in this trailer, they're going for a mix of African tribal music and Western hip hop. And I kind of like it. Not everyone is crazy about it, but I'm curious to see what kind of soundtrack that Ryan Coogler ends up using in this movie. I really love the mix of music that he used for Creed. But let me know what you think about this music in the comments. Next, we get a shot of Killmonger again, this time escorted by Daniel Kaluuya, an advisor to T'Challa. Now, you may know Kaluuya from the amazing movie that came out this year, Get Out. And based on Killmonger's pose here, it looks like his hands could be bound. Like this could be a flashback to when he was exiled, or this is after he helps Claw and now he has to face his punishment. And this actor here is Isaac Debankole. He has a lip plate, which is a form of body modification practiced in Ethiopia. Now in some tribes, the size of the disc connotes social or economic importance. So I'm guessing that this guy is the leader of his particular tribe. And it looks like there's gonna be some infighting between the tribes of Wakanda. Debankole's character can be seen in the background of where Killmonger and T'Challa fight in the pool. So I'm thinking in the absence of a king, all the tribal elders meet and decide that combat is the only way they're gonna be able to decide who the new king will be. But it looks like T'Challa has another rival, M'Baku, also known as Man-Ape. He's played by Winston Duke. And in the comics, he gets his name by eating the flesh of the white gorilla and bathing in its blood, which gives him powers. And here, M'Baku is the ruler of the mountain tribe. He and his people live in a snowy mountain region of Wakanda. We also meet a few other members of T'Challa's family here. His stepmother, Queen Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett. And notice how Ross is with her in this shot, so maybe he's there to help broker a deal between the different tribes. We also see Letitia Wright playing T'Challa's sister, Shuri. She's holding these awesome vibranium panther head hand cannons. Now, Wright has described her character as having the intelligence of Tony Stark. So she's kind of like the Q from James Bond to T'Challa. Like she uses vibranium to design this clever weaponry and suit modifications. We also see a quick shot of this South Korea chase sequence, but I'll talk more about it after we look at this final section. Okay, so Black Panther's suit is obviously upgraded here. When he smashes into the hood of this SUV, it releases a shockwave, which isn't something that happened in Civil War when he did that. By the way, the bridge that he's on here is the Gwangandaegyo Bridge in Busan, South Korea, and it lights up with these interesting purple colors at nighttime. But let's take a closer look at this suit. This is definitely different from the one that we saw earlier in the trailer and in Civil War. Like, the suit is sleeker and more form-fitting, and the mask is different. It has fewer vibranium stripes, and the eye holes are larger. Now, lately in superhero movies, costumers and visual effects people have been taking steps to try to make masked heroes' eyes more expressive. Like in Deadpool and in Civil War with Spider-Man, they animated the eyes so that the character has more personality when he's giving his lines. But here, Black Panther's eyes seem pretty rigid, so I'm curious to see how they get around that in this movie. One way is they could show him more often with his mask off, like they do with Captain America. Or they could try something similar to what they do with Iron Man, cutting to a close-up of his inner helmet display. Actually, in the comics, some more advanced versions of Black Panther's suit do have an inner CPU similar to Iron Man's. So maybe that's part of this redesign of his new suit. Like, that's a new feature that Shuri put in just to nag T'Challa as he's, you know, flipping over SUVs on bridges in South Korea. But let me know your thoughts about Black Panther's mask. Like, do you want him to be more expressive with either an inner close-up like Iron Man's or no mask at all? Or are you cool with these rigid, non-expressive eyes? Like, I'll admit, it does make him look way more intimidating. And make sure to weigh in on those other things that I asked about too, like any other MCU cameos you'd like to see and thoughts on the music. Now, this movie is scheduled to release on February 16th, 2018, and I am so pumped for this movie. I feel like I did when I saw that first teaser of Doctor Strange. Like, this movie looks so different and new, but still very Marvel and fun. And you can subscribe to New Rockstars to see all the other videos where we break down all these Marvel properties. And as we wait for February, let's keep this conversation going. Like this video and share it. If you could tweet about it, that would be awesome, and we would love it if you could include a link to this video. And if you want to be a bigger part of what we do here at New Rockstars, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our current donors, especially Matthew Salvas. So tweet at me with all of your thoughts and reactions to this amazing Black Panther trailer at EA Voss. You can also follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.